and welcome to another episode of the Transportation Exchange podcast presented by Rush Choices of Canada. I'm your host, Jason Cuddy, and joining us again this time is Dave Embury from Eaton. Dave, welcome back.
Thank you. Thanks for giving me another invite, and it's always a pleasure to participate in your cast here.
Yeah, it's been a while since we had you on, so we want to bring you back. A lot of things happened in the last couple of years since you were on, so we figured have you back on and walk us through everything that's happening over at Eaton. Maybe we'll start with the high level of what's happening transmission wise, and what are you seeing in the marketplace as far as the overall acceptability of manuals to automated, and what is Eaton doing kind of in that space?
All right. Well, the transition from manual to automated, it's been going on for quite a while now. I mean, likely 20 years since we really got into automated transmissions. And of course, at the time, it was all for trying to attract new drivers to the industry. The driver recruitment was hard back then as well as it is today, I guess. But moving to an automated transmission opened it up to a greater workforce, I believe. So that's how the transition started. Now, as it has transitioned to automation, it's likely really grown in the last 5-6 years, of course. And other features that companies benefit from going to an automated transmission, of course, the less driver fatigue, and it was easier to recruit drivers. And of course, the driver now can focus on the road ahead. So safety was a factor that came into that as well. And in addition, the fleet started to realize that, we have less wear and tear on the complete drive line. And then what also evolved out of that was the efficiency. So an automated transmission allowed a fleet to bring up their overall fuel average and made the worst drivers better. And so overall, it was better that way. So that was a benefit that once you got into maybe some fuel savings, and that was a really, really key benefit in helping fleets make that transition over. So if we look at maybe the highway market, it's likely 85% automated transmissions at this point. They could be a little bit higher in different areas, but there's still some owner-operators that may want a manual transmission for various reasons. But overall, that highway market is pretty well mostly automated, and even the vocational is going that way. So that is definitely the move forward, is automated. And some of the key benefits, of course, is the efficiency.
Yeah, no, fair. And we've seen it, obviously the market has changed, where we're used to, a lot of companies, especially more so like you said in the vocational side, have been, manual, I think. And, a lot of the old school guys like having that control. But as you get into the fleet specifically, recognizing the efficiency of an automated versus a manual, still performance wise does the same as far as, pulling and everything you need to do from a weight point of view, but it does it. The computers are just quicker and they're optimized. They're tuned to the engine. They're tuned to the whole overall vehicle performance. And so, yeah, to your point, efficiency is the key thing. With regards to Eaton, you guys have made some changes on the product line. What are the automated transmissions that are out there now for everyone to take advantage of?
The family of automated transmissions has been moved over to the Endurant family. The traditional automated transmission was a manual that we had added components to automate. So now with that, it served the purpose. It, you had all the same gear ratios, and it helped the transition from a driver that, wanted a 13-speed or an 18-speed, and basically automated the transmission that he was driving. So that helped with that transition over there, and to help prove to drivers that, we do have the same ability. They do have some control. They've got the same startability and, of course, road speeds and that. So that was beneficial in that area. Now, but as we advance, the transmission controller capacity was becoming very limited on that. So it was time to, add more capacity. But at the same time, it was like what we've done is we wanted to even improve efficiency further and reduce weights. So the new family is all aluminum cases. So what we've done there is it's a complete purpose-built automated transmission. It was not a manual converted. So in doing so, we were able to change gear ratios, the whole architecture of the transmission itself with the gearing. So it is actually more efficient than our older transmissions. And with the aluminum casing in that, we help dissipate the heat better. And oil coolers are only required once you get into the heavier weights of over 110. So now it also allowed us to bring gear ratios have all nice even steps, because the goal is to keep the engine operating where it's in the most efficient uh, RPM and horsepower and torque rating to give the best performance. So all the steps on their 12 speed is like basically 12 and 18 speed. They're 20% steps. So it'll allow us to manage the engine and keep it in peak performance. So with that, of course, is where we achieve the better fuel economy. And if in reality that's helped keeps the emissions managed in those areas. So those are the two that we have now, is two families, 12 speeds and 18 speeds for the heavy haul, and a vocational model of that. So that is the family moving forward. Now, in saying that, when we talk about what's new, we have a vocational version of the 12 speed, and also we have software configurations for natural gas. So if you're using X12 natural gas or an X15 natural gas coming out, we have shift parameters to accommodate and match up with those models.
Excellent. Yeah, significant changes, especially tied to natural gas, and the vocational obviously is a huge one, to play in that market, because that is traditionally a lot of the manual world, right? So to be able to give them that manual power, as far as from the shifting point of view, but automated is huge in both categories. So it's good to know that's here and coming. The one part you mentioned, which I thought was interesting, I think a lot of people don't maybe consider transmissions part of this equation, is the impact that transmissions have on on emissions, greenhouse gas reductions, and with everything coming out in 27, and obviously you guys are tied to an engine manufacturer within the industry. So maybe talk to us a little bit of like, where does the transmission play a part in that? Because I think traditionally people wouldn't think it really has any impact, to be honest with you.
That's true. There is no fuel line going to the transmission, but what is taken into consideration here is the complete drivetrain behind the engine. Like, we're talking about the tire size and rolling resistance, and power loss through the transmission. You talk about gear axle ratios and all that combined, and basically they have established that there can be a fuel savings there. And I call it fuel savings, but the end result is, of course, the greenhouse gas reduction. So with the transmission playing in part of that, so as I'd mentioned about the even steps, that's the first thing. That's key to keeping the engine operating there. But if we take the next step further, with an automated transmission, now you can add features like neutral coast. And neutral coast has been around for a while, but it was just an option for fuel economy. Now, in today's world, it is mandatory that you have neutral coast on highway equipment. So with that, I mean, we're getting a small savings, but it is still a savings, and it contributes to the overall greenhouse gas reduction. Now, moving forward, you may get into other features like start and stop, or features like that moving forward. That might be another option. But so right now, the push to automation by OEMs is even further, because they get better greenhouse gas benefits. So that's where you've also seen, like people that still want a manual, they may be penalized by a price increase to buy a manual transmission. In certain applications, they can justify that added cost. In some applications, the customer will decide it's time now to move over to automation and reap all the benefits that they can have from that.
Yeah, that's such a complete 180, right? I mean, probably 20 years ago, it was an upcharge for an automated or an automatic transmission, and a manual was the cost effective from a capital cost point of view initially. And now with everything the way it's gone, yeah, I have seen that, or at least heard it in the marketplace, where the manual now there is a premium to it if you do not go with an automated. You're almost to your point, you're penalized, and a lot of it has to do with what you just said, obviously. But it's interesting to see how much that has changed, right, in 15, 20 years within the marketplace.
Yeah, well, and also in the resale market as well.
Right.
There's a lot of fleets that would only buy an automated transmission. Well, they can only buy an automated transmission today because their driver pool has been so programmed for just automated transmissions, and they never did drive a manual transmission. And with now, of course, with the restricted driver's license, I mean, drivers could be driving their whole career and never drive a manual transmission.
Yeah, it's wild. It's wild to see that change so much. But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's a good point. So when you speak transmissions, we talk, emissions and everything coming down the pipe in the future. I guess one interesting part, again, people don't think about when you get into the EV world, you're used to a lot of, direct drive. You're not used to obviously going through a whole bunch of gears. It's a totally different, powertrain on it. But EVs need transmissions.
And they need it for the same reasons that we need transmissions in vehicles today. And because the transmission, the function is still the same. It's got to have enough reduction to start the load and then get you up to road speed and maintain that. So when you have electric trucks and electric buses, they've still got to go up hills and start the load. So what a transmission does, it's always been a torque multiplier. And so by adding a transmission to electric vehicle, which most people don't know because it's going to be an automated, the driver, of course, doesn't know they have a transmission.
Right.
But with that, so with the added reduction to get the load going and doing it by multiplying the torque through the transmission, what you're doing is helping take some of the load off the batteries, of course, and because that'd be quite a draw on the batteries to get the vehicle going, and of course, then maintaining road speed. So if we use the transmission, it helps expand the range of the batteries, and also, I mean, it could possibly allow you to go with a smaller electric motor. But so a transmission is used to get the load going in most cases, and it could be used going down the road as far as when you get into a hill, make a shift down. So currently, it's two-speed transmissions is what we see the most use, but we do offer a four-speed because for the heavier loads, you get into the heavier applications, then you need more torque multiplication. But it's all to help extend the range of the batteries and take the load off the electric motor.
That's why, yeah, it's not something I would have thought it would, to your point, it was obviously just to kind of help it get moving, just the nature of it, but not thinking of the implication of the battery saves. And obviously, if you're letting the transmission do literally the heavy lifting to get everything moving, then yes, the electric powertrain doesn't need to work as hard and therefore can exchange, your range ideally. So it's a huge input into the operation of that vehicle. I guess one other thing, we talk EVs and electric. Obviously, you guys are, we know you deal with you pretty much every day on a transmission side, but you have other things you are working on within that world with regards to, I guess, the 48 volt infrastructure and different solutions tied to assisting EVs and mainly helping OEMs kind of, get to where they need to go with emission regulations. Maybe if you can share some of the things that you guys are working on or that, will or at some point will be available to different OEMs to add on to their vehicles.
Mhm. And as you just stated, yeah, you know us from transmissions, but Eaton has other divisions, and we have our e-mobility division, which is very focused on electrical and electrical components. And Eaton as a whole has had a long history in power management of electricity, and we do all kinds of other other components for the electric vehicles. We don't have our own system, but what we do is we build and design systems and components that we sell to OEMs, make available to OEMs for their own systems. And as we move forward, I think when we're talking about emissions, you mentioned about 2027 is going to be another big reduction. And so, what is the next steps? How do we even help reduce our emissions more? And we've talked about some of the features we can do with a transmission. Well, what's next steps? Maybe what we could do is help reduce some of the draw from the engine, like all the accessories that are on the front of the engine, the fan, the water pump, power steering, and all of that. How could we help there? I think what we're looking at, a lot of OEMs, more so in Europe. Europe's been quicker to adapt 48 volt, but the North American market is doing it as well. So maybe what we do is we put a motor generator on the transmission, on the PTO opening, and use that to provide a source of power. And then with some of our other components to manage it, we manage that power, and all basically what we're doing is reducing the load off the engine, move it somewhere else. And there again, we might be able to help reduce greenhouse gas from doing that. The other big area is with electric heaters for the emissions. Today, with the catalysts, the heaters, you need to have a high temperature fairly quick, and the 48 volt can do that. So these are just options moving forward, and that we could use from our transmissions. I mean, they could have the power source from the engine or anything else, but we offer components for that, like whether it be converters, inverters, power distribution. So those are just some of the components that we offer OEMs for their electrical vehicles.
Oh, good to know. I think to your point, we probably know you 99% of the time as transmissions. So knowing the other areas that you guys are involved with, I'm sure we'll see a lot of it come to light as we are able to build vehicles. You'll see different options in different spots. And yeah, that 48 volt technology, I think you're starting to see trickle into the North American market a bit more for sure. And especially when that after treatment piece, that preheating piece is, I think, where it starts to pop up kind of more regularly to start with. And then once the architecture is there, definitely you can see people tapping into it. So I agree with you. As it becomes more popular, all these different items will definitely play a key piece in helping reduce emissions and just making the truck a little bit more customizable and getting things into different spots even on the vehicle. Just as far as where you need it to be optimal in your operation. So it's interesting to hear about for sure. But yeah, I did want, like I said, there's a lot to catch up on. So we did want to have you on. I do thank you for coming on and getting us up to speed on, everything from, the new product line with the Endurance, but also your role in the EV world and the components that make it work. So I do thank you for joining us again.
You're more than welcome.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Perfect. Well, hey, that concludes today's episode. To catch past episodes, please check transportationexchangepodcast.ca. And until next time, thanks for watching.